Chapter 2. Well, this is as good a place to start as any. Leave no stone unturned. Turn them all back over. The dark ones, the half-buried ones, the dirty ones, the cracked ones, the mossy ones, the horrible ones. The really heavy ones that stand on their own, apart from the others, like landmines that you tried to heap more earth upon. The ones you swore you'd try to bury and never revisit again. The ones that keep getting uncovered just enough by some kind of emotional upheaval, and you pretend you can't see them anymore, but they're always in your peripherals. Gather all your strength. Reach down and tip those fuckers over, even if it breaks your heart again. Even if it threatens to crack you in two, because each time you do this, you can put yourself back together. And one day, there will be no more stones in your garden to trip you up, and you, my friend, will be unbreakable. I was the middle of 3 children. I was born when my brother was nearly 5, and my sister was born when I was 6. I was a kid who grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I look back on it, especially the 70s for some reason, with total rose-colored glasses. I know, it sounds like such an old person thing to say, but it's true. When I think of that decade, I think of being outside all the time. Summertime on a beautiful, lush, green, chemical-coated, thick, luxurious, weed-free carpet of a lawn. Out all day with filthy little bare feet, riding my tricycle up and down the driveway, making mud pies to set out and bake in the sun, making rose petal perfume, going to the rose bush at the front of the house and gathering fallen petals from the ground, putting them in a little plastic bucket and covering them with enough water to steep, stirring and mashing them with a stick. I had to carefully reach through the rose bush to turn the water nozzle on, keeping a watchful eye because there would sometimes be a praying mantis in the rose bush, perched like a sinister little alien guard close beside. Not a fan of praying mantises. Sad though, because I haven't seen one in years. Once you had stirred the petals in water thoroughly, you had to try it, of course, dabbing some on your wrist and behind your ears. It never had any good scent, so you had to pretend. Try again next time. It was an era of freewheeling, easy-going, no seat belts, men wandering around with shaggy hair and no shirts summers. An idyllic summer, on the road, off on vacation. Other cars traveling down that highway with luggage and camping gear precariously tied to the roof. Big plastic pitchers of juice that Mom made with scoops of colored, fruit-scented powder, and a free dump of white sugar, straight from the bag, with a cigarette clamped in her mouth. Playing in my little freezing kiddie pool with loads of grass floating around, because Dads always filled the kiddie pool from the hose right after they'd cut the lawn. Hopping through the sprinkler and trying not to step on it and break it again by accident. Hot dogs and potato chips. Hamburgers and corn on the cob. The barbecued pork chops I never really liked. Potato salad. Tuna salad in all its delicious, creamy macaroni glory. Watermelons with actual pits in them that you spat onto the grass while eating them in the backyard. Food was just food. There was no junk food or health food. It was all just food. I think of being outside all day, playing by myself, sometimes playing with neighborhood kids. Kids of today often don't know that experience. That if there were kids in your neighborhood, whether you like them or not, you would be playing with them at some point, even if they were boring or obnoxious, even if they were bossy or spoiled and cried at every little thing and ran down the street constantly to tell on you to their mom or dad, who would then come over to give you undeserved hell. If they were in your neighborhood, you were going to play with them at some point. You'd want to say no, but your mom would make you be nice and hang out with them. Summer was pretty much over once the Sears back-to-school catalog showed up. The front cover usually had a pic of kids in hot and uncomfortable looking fall clothes, and it would kickstart that sick feeling in your stomach. My brother and I, before our little sister was born or was relevantly on the scene, had to go back to school shopping with Mom. Typically, we'd each get a new pair of running shoes, a pair of pants, a pair of cords, a sweater, and a couple of new shirts. My brother and I would want to goof off in the store and hide in the middle of those circular clothing racks. I loved the cozy feel of hiding in those racks, so quiet in there, hugged by the clothes. Mom was pretty much always mad when we were kids, and she didn't really appreciate our lack of focus during these shopping trips. Trying on those hot school clothes felt absolutely awful in August. Back in the 70s, we also wore a few items of clothing that Mom had sewn herself. I had blouses and jumpers that Mom made that I wore for my kindergarten and grade 1 school photos. God, I still have yet to figure out how to thread the damn bobbin on my sewing machine. Never mind make wearable clothes. That sewing machine is tragically and eternally down the basement in its box, for the record. I feel like it was, for quite a long time, me and my brother and our perma-annoyed Mom. Dad was either at work at the fire department, or he was off playing hockey on the firemen's hockey team, or he was out having a beer with the hockey guys. Mom was very, very intelligent. She was an avid reader and particularly interested in all things medical. I always thought that Mom was basically a doctor with the amount of knowledge she had, even if she was, in actuality, a housewife and mother. She was always cleaning the house. From room to room, systematically, from downstairs to upstairs, always carting around her cigarettes and ashtray, that heavy canister vacuum, and that cup of coffee she sipped on all day, even when it got cold. She would vacuum the downstairs one day, and the upstairs the next day. Laundry day for clothes was Monday, sheets and towels was Tuesday, grocery day was Thursday. It was always scary when Mom was in our rooms tidying, because she'd get extra annoyed on top of her general state of annoyance about how messy we were, how messy I was, and the clutter of all the things I had. She would set that ashtray on my dresser while she made the bed and straightened things up, cigarettes smoldering away all the while. Thoughts. January 15th, 2020. It occurred to me this morning that one of the things I was feeling was profound disappointment in myself for even getting sick and having any muscular problems, and becoming overrun with anxiety. I started coming down with something right after Christmas. It's been nearly 7 full weeks since I caught this shitty virus, and I'm still coughing. Not pissing my pants anymore with each and every cough, luckily, and it has definitely improved, but still coughing. Don't even get me started on the little voice that whispers to me about, what if this is the beginning of cancer? You know, Mom had that cough that wouldn't go away, and she was carrying cough drops and lozenges around in her purse everywhere she went. Remember that? Also, I haven't worked out seriously in nearly 2 months as well, and I keep dealing with this feeling that I've got a cranked neck. So I was disappointed. I normally work out 5 or 6 days a week. I drink celery juice first thing every morning. I drink loads of ginger tea all week. I try to eat lots of fruits and veg. Nearly every shelf in the kitchen has vitamins and health supplements on it. I don't drink milk. I try to do at least a couple of vegetarian or vegan meals per week. I try to do stuff to boost my immune system. I never give up. I plow through when I'm stressed, and I keep going to work. I almost never take a day off, in fact. I keep moving forward, always moving forward. So I had this ridiculous feeling of disappointment in myself that I actually let a virus slip through my armor, that I could finally be taken down by all that anxious garbage that was pouring through my mind on a daily basis. Not mentally taken down, but physically taken down. Only able to look over my left shoulder with difficulty the past 3 days. That's how stiff my neck is. I have a part-time job as a lunch supervisor at a local elementary school. It's not much, but it's a big deal to me. It took a lot to even start working after Dad died. I went for an interview at another place the summer after, but I clearly wasn't ready. The lady really liked me, and when she called to offer me the job, I panicked and was sobbing on the phone as I declined the offer. That was fairly mortifying. So it took me a couple more years to work up the whatever to get this job. The kids are absolutely the best part of the job. In the mornings before work, I see my own kids off, do the dishes, and then I get my breakfast and coffee and I go sit on the couch and watch videos online for a bit before I leave. A person I enjoyed watching online had been absent for a good few weeks, but now was back with a new video, so this morning I happily clicked on it. Turns out, he had been absent because he had become very unwell, and to make a long story short, part of his heart wasn't pumping blood properly. As he talked about being at the hospital and having scary tests done and finding out scary tests had scary results, I was trying not to let my neck and back muscles turn hard as a rock. I could feel the anxiety wanting to gently tickle at my edges. Then on my lunch break, I had to stop at the store for a few things. One of the cashiers in there, who I kinda know and who chats with me about her family, told me all about her uncle, who worked with Dad at one time. It turns out he has an aggressive form of dementia now, and he can no longer be left on his own. Plus, he is going blind. Once again, I could feel the feelings working their way through me. I was driving home and my mind was swimming with gray, bleak thought. It's less than 5 minutes to drive home, and by the time I got to my driveway and sat in the car for a bit, all I could think about was people getting sick. People getting scary sick. Scary things lurking in everyone's future. Does everyone's life have to end with something frightening and horrible? Is no one safe from all these awful health issues? Is there no hope? Look at me. I can't even get rid of this cough virus. How am I supposed to keep cancer and dementia and heart problems at bay? Is there any fucking point? I came in the house and went straight down to the basement to throw some stuff in the dryer. I was starting to sink right into my old familiar doom and gloom, fall right into that defeated, depressed, all too familiar stressed out Karen state. But then I thought, you know what? No. Screw that. What if this forced slowdown I've been experiencing is actually a profound gift from the universe? Stay with me here. Yes. What if it's a profound gift to reroute me and get me on a better track of health, both physical and mental, for a much better future? Yes. And also, I choose to be happy today. And that is what I'm going to continue to do. Even if I have to chase every dark thought out of my mind like a mental broom after a big-ass spider. I have to say, Mom was really, really good though at being a housewife, or a homemaker, or whatever expression suits that unsung profession best. She was extremely organized. She never failed to do that laundry on the same days, and it wasn't a load here or there like me, all distracted and finding myself back on my laptop wasting time. No, that laundry was washed, dried, folded, and put away in dresser drawers all within the same day. She actually read the flyers that came in the newspaper and saw what deals were on at the grocery stores that week. If that meant going to more than one store to save money on certain items, that is what she did. Unlike me, she would cut out coupons. If the item sold out too quickly, she would get the rain check on that item and make sure to get that good sale price once it was back in stock. If she brought something home and found it was rotten or just not good in some way, she would go straight back to the store and return it. Me? I open up my new bag of lemons, find 2 with blue fur on them, throw them in the compost bin, muttering and swearing and cursing the store, and thinking of all the money I've flushed down the toilet over the years. Mom would plan all the meals for the entire week right there as she snaked her way slowly through the grocery store aisles. I actually try to do this too, but by Thursday it's usually, oh my God, I'm so sick of cooking, and it's really a toss-up what might hit the plates that night. Here's what I remember about the grocery store when I was a kid. The floors were always this really ugly, dingy linoleum, and they usually seemed super dirty. Is this because I was small and so much closer to the floor? That little seat at the front of the shopping cart wasn't terribly comfortable. Getting groceries with Mom felt like it took an eternity. It actually did, though. It was a thorough outing. Some stores had little coin-operated rides in the front entryway, and maybe, just maybe, you could talk your mother into parting with a quarter so you could sit on that shiny plastic car or horse as it bumped up and down for a minute. You might actually convince your mom to put a coin in one of those machines filled with treasures and little translucent plastic eggs, or a small handful of shiny fruit candy discs, or a gumball that would taste like shit about 30 seconds after you'd chewed all the sugar goodness out of it. Sometimes, no, this felt often. While in line to pay, when I was a little older, Mom would either leave me with the cart or lay out all the items on the conveyor and realize she had forgotten something. Then, alarmingly, she would tell me to wait there and say she would be right back. Nightmare. What if you're not back in time? I will be. But what if you're not? Then just tell the lady your mother will be back in a minute. Oh my God. Then I'd stand there mentally freaking out as the line ahead of me got shorter and shorter and the stuff on the conveyor disappeared one by one, frantically looking over my shoulder and scanning the store until finally Mom returned in what always felt like a nick of time. I can't think of anything scarier than that scenario as a kid. It's funny now, but it wasn't then. Same kind of deal at the Italian bakery. Yes, that's what it was widely known as in town. The Italian bakery. It was definitely a well-loved, well-respected bakery. It was in a narrow brick house that had the main floor converted into the bakery, and the upstairs was living quarters. They had absolutely delicious bread, some donuts, and thick, doughy slices of pizza. I have no idea why, but Mom often forced me to go in and get a loaf of bread as a kid. Maybe it was to try to get me to have confidence doing things. Maybe it was so she could sit and continue to smoke in the car. At any rate, it was horrifying. Mom would hand me something ridiculous like a dime or 15 cents and sternly instruct me to get a loaf of bread and make sure it's fresh. You have to feel it to make sure it's fresh. Don't get it if it's stale. Okay, a couple of problems right there. The first was that what I thought of as fresh did not match what my mother thought of as fresh. To me, fresh was that fluffy, soft, super fake, white generic sandwich bread that we got from the grocery store. The bread that made great sandwiches, but to me was disgusting when just plain with butter. Hated it when Mom would give me a slice of that with my soup or Chef Boyardee when I came home from school for lunch. Fluffy, cotton batten bread, as Dad always called it. But beautiful, fresh Italian bread was supposed to feel crusty, crisp and hard on the outside. This did not equate to fresh in my mind. The second problem was the ridiculously small amount of coins Mom would hold out to me for that loaf of bread. How could something cost that little? Plus, how did Mom know? How do you know that's enough? I would ask, feeling panicky on the inside. Because I know. Me, not satisfied with this answer. But what if it's wrong? It's not. But what if it is? Mom, seriously annoyed and sighing with impatience. Then come back to the car and I'll give you more change. Oh my God. So with great trepidation, off I'd schlump into the bakery. There was a big wire rack right in the middle with all the loaves of bread. I would be watched like a hawk by the stern, stout, kerchiefed, seemingly unimpressed lady who worked the counter. Somehow, I was supposed to squeeze that bread under her watchful gaze. I'd reach out my hand to give it a feel. Is that fresh? Feel another one quickly. Is that fresh? By the time I'm about to check another, suddenly a disapproving and impatient, "All fresh!" rings out across the store. Sheepish, embarrassed smile of apology, bring the loaf to the counter and sweat bullets as she simply hits buttons on the cash register and holds out her hand. I hand over the paltry few coins, and somehow a miracle occurs, and the crabby lady doesn't tell me it's not enough money. "Thank you," I squeak, and get the hell out of there. And sometimes, Mom, completely exasperated, "That's not fresh. Didn't you feel it? That's clearly stale." They all felt the same. Then Mom spends a moment grumbling and muttering that they do that sometimes, and put the stale loaves out in front and leave the fresh ones in the back so you have to actually ask someone for a fresh one. I don't know about all that, but there's no way I'm going to directly ask the person at the back of the store, the person who is baking the bread, for a fresh loaf. You go right ahead, Mom, but as for me, no thanks. In her defense, the bread there was the best, and as far as Mom was concerned, she was a shopping warrior no matter where she shopped, so there's that. She was serious about what she spent her money on, but I can't say that shopping with her when I was a kid was particularly fun. Here's what I remember about department stores. That big ashtray in the entryway, all gross, sand-filled, studded with cigarette butts. I'm so thankful kids of today know nothing about these big communal ashtrays. Equally dingy, filthy floor. Always way too hot with that winter coat, hat, and boots you had to wear because it was cold outside. If you were still small enough, you could maybe con your mom into holding your coat. The clothing racks, as I mentioned, were amazing to hide in while your mom was looking for clothes. If you were really lucky, you could bug her enough to go off on your own, first to the pets section, and then to the toys. The pets section was generally comprised of tanks of small fish and cages that contained hamsters. I loved to look at all the adorable little hamsters and the goldfish. But the toys section. I have to tell you about the toys section. The toys section was a true childhood wonderland. First of all, there were rarely any parents supervising over there in those days, so that was pretty awesome. And second, there were loads of toys that had been pried out of their boxes by some brazen, helpful kids, so there was always lots to play with. Toys weren't packaged too securely back then. You know how toys are practically bolted into their packaging nowadays? And it's an unbelievable exercise of frustration to get them out? This is probably why. I remember as a kid there was this toy, Stretch Armstrong. Aimed at boys, it was this amazing action figure, wearing what looked like underpants, but I guess were some kind of strongman shorts. He had this pleasingly rubbery, squashy body and limbs that you could stretch satisfyingly far. There were always a lot of Stretch Armstrongs out of their boxes, and lots of Stretch Armstrong casualties. Guys that had been stretched too far, exposing the magic jelly inside that gave them the good squishy feel. I don't know, but I will have to ask my brother, who has an unmatched memory, because I remember that jelly as being red. How creepy is that? There was really something disturbing about a damaged Stretch Guy toy. First, broken toys were just wrong, and second, Stretch sitting there in his own jelly, arms stretched so far they would never snap back again? Something to really ponder. The toys section was amazing. Hell, your mom could do all her boring mom things for as long as she wanted, as long as there was a toys section. Not that you were ever allowed to get one of those toys, or leave with anything new to hold in your hand, but I guess that only added to the appeal and mystique about that section. Here's what I remember about grocery stores and department stores alike, but mostly I remember this about grocery stores. There always seemed to be a kid who was getting whacked in one of those stores. No, I don't mean whacked like in those mobster movies we've all seen at some point. I mean an enraged parent with a really ugly look on his face, hauling a small kid up by one arm and laying the beats to that kid in front of anyone and everyone. My brother and I both agreed. When we saw that happening, it was horrifying and it made us feel terrible. Our quiet selves, wide-eyed, taking in that violent scene of total loss of order and feeling ultimate sympathy for that screaming kid. Kinship, even. We don't know what that kid did to drive that parent to totally lose her or his shit in public, but it never felt good to see it. Thoughts, January 25th, 2020. Sometimes I am sick to death of gratitude. I am sick, completely tired of all those inspirational posts that liberally pepper social media. At other times those messages can be comforting and yes, inspiring, but sometimes I am sick to death of them. All those high horse, preachy platitudes of black and white views on wellness, those proclamations that happiness is a choice, those finger-waggling reminders that there is nothing to fear if you have faith in the universe and spirit, in your God of choice, in benevolent powers that are seemingly always working in your favor. That fear is in your mind, and that if you are sad, it's because you are stuck in the past, and because you choose to be stuck in the past. That all you have to do is let go, and you will begin to heal. Let go. Let go. Let go of the past. If you don't move on, you will never reach your goal. But lately, it's gratitude. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Before you do anything else in your day, list all the things you are grateful for. Okay. I'm grateful for this bed. I'm grateful I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. for a fucking change. God, I hate 3 a.m. sometimes. I'm grateful for my children. I love them very, very much. I'm grateful for my husband. He is wonderful. Think of more things. Dig deeper. Mention all that food you shouldn't have eaten, but you're grateful for anyway. All that water you hate drinking for the sake of drinking water that nearly made you piss your pants a few times and had you running for the can all the way upstairs so many times. But be grateful for it, because only a first world asshole would complain about drinking water. Seriously, hang your head in shame and think about people who A, have no water nearby to drink, B, have filthy water to drink, C, don't have nearly enough water to put out those raging wildfires, and D, have to ration their dwindling water supply. All right, I get it. I'm grateful, okay? Grateful. All day, every day, from the moment you wake up and discreetly check the status of your stiff anxiety neck, till the moment you go to bed and look at how you measured up over the course of the day. Grateful. And if you had a moment during the day where you suddenly missed your mother and father so damn much, and it made you sad, and then it snowballed into all the things you haven't accomplished yet, and all the people you're letting down as you get better, and holy shit, this getting better business is taking a really, really long time. Well, you'd better stop. Stop right then and there, and remember to be grateful. Stop right there. Stop and think about all the things you're grateful for. Just wringing the gratefulness out of yourself like you're a fucking washcloth. Because you are grateful. You have so much to be grateful for. How grateful you are to simply be alive. But I did not choose to be here. So sometimes I think I'm really just making the best of it. Don't get me wrong. I am grateful. Profoundly so. But sometimes I think it's okay to still honor the sad. I think it's okay to know that sometimes there are some things that happen in your life that were not your choice, and they will make you sad no matter how many times you do rise up and choose happiness. That there are some things that can happen to us that sometimes happiness is not a choice in that moment or that day. Because to get back to that path of happiness again, we still have to honor that stone of sadness right there in the middle of the path. Honor it, and then pick it up, put it in your pocket, carry it with you, but keep fucking moving. All of this may sound contradictory. It's a great exercise of relearning how to be. I spent a very long portion of my life being unhappy. More and more I am choosing to rewire myself with gratitude and happiness. It is absolutely worth it. I have more happiness at this age than I have had in over 30 years? That I truly love myself now. Truly love myself. That I see beauty in all things. So yes, I am indeed grateful. And gratitude is truly a worthwhile practice. Sometimes it's just a major pain in the ass. Pancreatitis continued. Toward the end of the summer of Hubs being very sick, very scary sick, he looked awful. He had shaved off his beard because he was tired of barfing through it. He'd had a beard for quite some time, so not only did he not look like himself because he had shaved that off, he really didn't look like himself because he was very skinny. For the first time ever, his ribs jutted out and you could see every bone in his back. His hair was dull and had a weak look to it. His complexion shifted in color like a friggin' mood ring. Sometimes he seemed to have this weird tan. Other times he was like a gray putty color. I was weary of scanning his face, trying to decipher what the varying tones of his skin could mean. Was his liver struggling? Was he going to be sick again? He was starving, only able to eat tiny meals at a time, but so hungry to eat huge meals, desperate for food. Each night, when we were sitting together in the TV room, he'd search up videos online of someone making chicken wings, or fish and chips, or great hunks of steak with garlic butter dripping down the sides, or pizza. Pretty much all the decadent stuff we shouldn't really be eating, but we really can't resist. That's what he was looking at. And he harassed my daughter and I all the time to try different junk food. He seemed to constantly be offering to go get us some horrible takeout food just so he could watch us eat it. He was obsessed. He was obsessed because he was starving. It made me angry. I was so stressed out all the time. I was trying so hard to make dinners that were so healthy, so low in fat. I tried to be so careful thanks to my terror of ever being responsible for waking up Hub's seemingly sleeping gallbladder and ever causing another stone to get stuck again. It was pissing me off, all these attempts to shove junk food our way. But he was a relentless pusher. As hard as I tried, he kept having episodes of being sick, and those episodes threw him back into the hospital. Rewind a little back to the beginning of summer. Hubs had basically gone back to work after his first 2-week stay in the hospital in March. He'd started going to the office about an hour from our home not too long after that. It was the end of June, and he'd gone to the office that Friday. He went afterwards to his parents' house to visit his family as well as his aunt and uncle who were there from England. He had dinner with everyone. Because he was desperate for food, if I wasn't there, he would push it more than he should, and that is what he did that night. He had, with his dinner, a cob of corn. No butter or anything on it, mind you, but a whole cob of corn. So what's the big deal? Well, I think it was a cob of corn that led to a night of vomiting and pain meds at the hospital right before my birthday back in April. After lots of vomiting, there we were back at the hospital. As the clock on the wall hit midnight, I realized it was now my birthday. When I went to use one of the little washrooms, I saw that familiar smudge on the toilet paper that meant I had gotten my period. Happy birthday to me. I had a specific conversation about that afterward, the corn on the cob, not my period. It was a very rational, very philosophical conversation, very sympathetic. I mused that corn has a lot of particular kind of fiber in it that's clearly hard to digest. Otherwise, why would we see it reappear when we went to the bathroom the next day if that wasn't the case? I think it's best to avoid corn while you're healing, I'd said. I think it must be very hard on your compromised digestion. Hubs agreed. So that day after work, in June, he'd visited and had dinner with his family and came home not feeling very good. Then he did that thing that made my heart flop over. He ran for a plastic bag to be sick in. What did you eat at your parents'? I asked. Oh, a little of this and that. Corn on the cob. A fucking cob of corn, I said. I was livid. I slammed my laptop shut. I set it down and stormed out of the room. The kids watched me with wide eyes. Imagine being furious over corn on the cob. Unreasonably, unsympathetically furious. Furious at a man who was desperate to be able to eat enough just to feel okay. How insane life had become. A cob of corn had pushed him back to the hospital in April for a night, and a cob of corn sent him again to the hospital right at the end of June. So that was right as the kids finished up school. It was the first week of summer vacation and their dad was in the hospital again. That was a bad one, too. After throwing up for many, many hours, the vomiting eventually slowed down and the hiccups began. Hiccups for hours and hours. Eventually the hiccups would start to make him feel nauseous and he'd throw up again. Bags of bile. I don't know if it was then that I had a light bulb go off, that if he made sure to have a little something, anything, some juice, what have you, in his stomach, that would maybe give that bile somewhere to go, something to digest, and he wouldn't feel so sick. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but that seemed plausible to me. On Canada Day, July 1st, after another trip to the hospital, I came home, set one of those zero-gravity lounge chairs up at the back of the driveway, put my bathing suit on, and nearly passed out on that thing for a while. Those awful hiccups would be an off-and-on, stubborn problem all that summer. I already had all kinds of different variations of over-the-counter anti-nauseants. Quick dissolve, regular capsules, suppositories, all natural with ginger. I went out and added to this medicine cache a couple of boxes of gripe water. Gripe water was something I bought for my kids as babies, and it stopped baby hiccups dead in their tracks. It didn't work well for Hubs, though. The hiccups persisted from time to time when he was finally back home again. One evening, out of desperation, I gave him a drink box of grape-based berry juice, 100% real juice. It stopped the hiccups. I do not know why. Maybe it was then that I was convinced that having a little something in his stomach at all times was helpful. Also, I do believe in the miraculous power of grapes and berries. At any rate, it kept those awful hiccups at bay. So, for the rest of the summer, Hubs had constant berry juice on the go, especially during the night. He hated it eventually and wanted to not drink it, but I was insistent, because if it wasn't hiccups, it was horrible, huge, constant burps that would plague him and make it impossible to sleep, especially by the time August and our annual family vacation rolled around. Thoughts. Evolving. February 2nd, 2020. Relentless positivity is not bad. It's good. Negativity is easy. Negativity is social. It's what everyone is doing, so it's great to fit in. Everyone has scars. Everyone has disappointments, traumas, hurts. Negativity is like a comforting blanket, a club jacket that gives you a sense of belonging. What you think of as a hug to yourself, that hug that you needed so badly but never got. Positivity feels like stepping off the cliff naked and alone. And worse, it takes work. You don't realize that you've built anxiety, whether heard or internally born, for years, so it is as easy as breathing. Positivity is a workout, and doing it relentlessly feels like a chore. An onerous fucking chore, but you are choosing now. You are choosing to replace the old habit with a new one, no matter how painful. You are taking that control back. You are driving your own fucking car. No more being a victim. 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time. Jumping off that cliff, but choosing to believe you do it with optimism and maybe even joy, and a forming belief that you will land all in one piece, on your feet, like a cat, and you will keep moving forward. No more fear that you will be an unfixable broken heap scattered over jagged rocks. No more fear. No fear.